you're just not supposed to know about SV40, and you're not supposed to continue studying it if you're a researcher. This is from the book Turtles All the Way Down. Now, what they're saying is what some medical researchers say. I know that's not a good screen. I'm going to read it to you, and don't worry about how that looks crappy on your phone. I apologize. What they're saying is that SV40 is related to the polio vaccine. And that's interesting because in 1960, this researcher, Bernice Eddy, a researcher at the NIH, discovered that injecting hamsters with a small amount of the substrate used in the Salk polio vaccine led to the development of cancerous tumors in the hamsters. She was told that she could not publish this discovery. Her managers were concerned that the publication could severely harm the vaccination program, but she presented her findings anyway at a scientific cancer conference in New York. Her manager's response was swift. Her lab was taken away from her. She was demoted and moved to another position. Soon thereafter, her findings were corroborated by other researchers, and the carcinogen in the substrate was identified by 2 Merck researchers. What did they find? A previously unidentified virus found in the rhesus monkey kidneys, which had been used to grow the polio virus for the vaccine. The new virus was named SV40. Further tests confirmed its presence in a significant portion in both the Salk and Sabin vaccines, those are the 2 popular polio vaccines produced in the United States. So, when this researcher found a connection, she did not find a connection between the SV40 antigen. She just found a connection between that vaccine, which contained SV40, and cancer and tumors, right? So do we know, so when people say we don't know that SV40 causes cancer...
I've sent the collection point to your GPS. Make the pickup and bring the goods to the warehouse. Should be straightforward.
What's in these vaccines is just the SV40 promoter and not the antigen, meaning the thing that causes the virus, and that this has been used in other vaccines for decades. Again, look what happened to the one woman who wanted to study it. She was deplatformed, basically canceled, right? So they just don't know. So when they say, no, this is not a carcinogen, it's fine, they don't know. They don't know which element of SV40 was carcinogenic. They only found evidence of it in hamsters, and they told her not to publish it. So this could mean that the Pfizer vaccine may have had contamination, just like remdesivir, sorry, if anyone were willing to look into it, which they're not, right? But given that the FDA and the CDC have not said a damn word about SV40 since this revelation last week from Health Canada, it's an important question. Did the FDA know about this? If so, when? Or did Pfizer not tell them? Did they falsify documents? That's the question.
And we may be getting some answers on this because a number of high-profile doctors and members of Congress are now, where you've seen a lot of COVID stories floating around over the past few weeks, right?
Yeah.
We saw this with nursing moms or with other stories. They didn't really seem to strike the alarm bells like this story.
Yeah.
But over the past 24 hours, I've seen a number of high-profile doctors, Dr. Asim Mayorta and others, are saying, raising the alarm bells of this. We may get an investigation that goes through Congress, may have people call before.
I don't think we're going to get that. There's no appetite for that
in the European Union.
Maybe.
This is a big deal. This is not a small problem. This is not a small
No. What I think that the only way we're going to get this is through litigation. And it's got to be, if you think about the idea of piercing the corporate armor, there's got to be a bunch of little swords thrown at it to pierce the armor. For every 10 lawsuits, probably one of them will put a chink in that armor. Is that a chink in the armor?
Yeah, not a shink.
Whatever.
A chink in the armor.
And so it's only through litigation that we're going to get these answers. And Pfizer will be dragged into this, and the FDA will too. Here's how... Go ahead.
I was just going to say one benefit to one of them piercing the armor will be that will set a precedent. And once the precedent is set, then it will be easier for more to avoid.
Right, yeah. So, I hate the idea that Americans were too litigious, but this is how we litigate our values. And if we're saying we were wronged by the government and these companies during the pandemic, it has to be solved in the courts. That's no other way because duels are not allowed right now. Did you know that journalists used to carry guns because they were regularly challenged to duels? That's just not the way we live right now. So it has to be litigation, unfortunately. Here's how health blogger Steve Kirsch put it. He says now the FDA is at a crossroads. Either they admit they knew about the plasma contamination and failed to disclose that to the public or outside committees, or they can claim they didn't know about it, in which case Pfizer is liable. And we have the Pfizer documents that were given to the FDA, so we know what the FDA got. And I seriously doubt there's any disclosure of SV40 contamination. We haven't seen it, but is it somewhere else that we haven't seen? Means we have an adulterated vaccine and the FDA has to remove it from the market until that is fixed. And if the FDA doesn't do that, this is what he's saying, should face criminal prosecution for endangering the public and not following the law. So again, and he further says that he's speaking to, personal harm attorneys, other people, business attorneys who would be looking into this. He says he got up the phone with this one attorney and confirmed that here's a list of 90 lawyers you can contact if you want to sue the vaccine manufacturers. So they are ramping up. Will any of them succeed in piercing that corporate veil? Clayton, so I guess now we have a little friendly bet. He thinks Congress is going to do something about it. I find that laughable. I think it has to be solved in the courts.
I think you're right. I think we will see that, and I think that if the amount of lawsuits you're about to see unfold is going to be unprecedented, I think. And as Steve Kirsch just further, he just tweeted a moment ago, he said legal opinions will vary, of course, but I just got off the phone with a very high-profile attorney who asked not to be named and said that the key question is, do you have to tie your harm to the adulteration specifically of this vaccine? And he said, or does the adulteration remove the liability protection on the base product? He said, as expected, the case is stronger if you can link the adulteration causing the injuries, but there is still liability if you didn't give informed consent to having an adulterated product injected into your body. So the answer is it's not necessary, which is stunning. So amount of lawsuits that we could see going after Pfizer and these scumbags who pulled all of this garbage on people and lied to people, and then going after the FDA.
Yeah.
And what did the CDC know? And who at the CDC signed off on these things? Who at the FDA signed off on these things? What about Dr. Fauci? At what point, how high does this go in this chain? And that's where I think Congress can get involved in full-on major congressional hearings on this.
And how far back? So I've just shown you this one case from 1960 where a researcher tried to study SV40, tried to study the cancer-causing agents in the polio vaccine, and was told to shut it down. So what other studies have been shut down? So I watched some of the conversation on Twitter from people who are saying, oh, stop it, SV40 does not cause cancer. How can they say that? I can't say it does. I can say that this lady found a correlation, but I can't say it does, and I can't say it doesn't. And there is an entire, not conspiracy, there is a research such as this. So we've shown it to you. Let us know what you think.
Now let's talk about that. Okay, that's great. An amazing job, and I'm fascinated by this. We've invited Steve Kirsch to join us here on the show. He's been a guest on the show before, so hopefully Steve can come on to talk more about this. He's out there fighting the good fight on the litigation side of this and trying to get people answers. My question is, does it make sense for there to be like some big class action lawsuit? I saw someone here in the chat just saying, come on guys, class action lawsuit. And we know that lawyers make a lot of money on class action lawsuits. Does it do enough, though, to go after these companies? Or is it better to have 200, 300, 400 different civil cases?
Yep.
Because they're all going to be different. That's the thing, right?
Yep.
Because the damages might be different. Like, people can bring
Okay, the networks are down, the equipment is ready, and we've crippled their supplies. Mrs. Rackman has written our check and given us the green light. We're good to finally move on that submarine and stop this threat once and for all. When you're ready, get your crew together and head back to planning.
All of them had SV40 and none of them had consent. Then no. In fact, the history of a class action lawsuit came from mass-producing products.
Right.
Whereas at once, you and I, you used my horse, you broke your leg, you sued me or whatever, right? We knew each other.